Welcome to episode 18 of the Brew Crew Scoop. I'm Scoop. That's Cole. Kian is not here. Technical difficulties as usual, but it sounds like he's getting a new laptop as we speak. So fingers crossed on that one. We want to see his cute face in that helmet as soon as possible back here. So the Brewers just wrapped up a sweep of the New York Mets. Couldn't have possibly had a better opening series, to be honest. So things are looking great. We're going to dive into that, but then at the end of the episode, the bulk of this is going to be we had a really, really good interview with Javik Blake. He's the voice of the AA Biloxi Shuckers, AA affiliate of the Brewers. That was even better than expected. He gave some great insight on the guys we want to hear about. Calm the nerves a little bit on the Churio elbow thing that we heard from, was it Nightingale or John Heyman? But either way, made you feel better about something that's probably a big non-story. So really good to hear from him. We really appreciate his time. But just want to take a deep dive into this opening series first. But Cole, how are you?
Doing pretty well after the weekend. I got to listen to the game on the radio Sunday because I was out and about, but pretty good. And I know Tuesday, Uke back on the mic, so
Oh
not
yeah.
not complaining about the crew that I was listening to on Sunday, but can't wait to hear another year Euchre.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we saw that he's back, but he's taking it day by day. So you really never know when he'll be calling it quits. But it's good to hear he'll be back for at the very least one game after a kind of sad sign off last year in that last playoff game. So, but yeah, diving into it. Game one started off with some fireworks, but 3-1 win from the Brewers. Freddy shoved. He went 6 innings with 8 Ks, a walk, 1 earned run. Abney Uribe with the save, and then Jackson Churio had his first hit. But the national storylines from that game, oh, also Christian Yelich home run, he's so back. But the national storylines from that game are a slide from Rhys Hoskins into Jeff McNeil that was deemed illegal. And from everything I've heard in the last couple of days from non-Mets people, it sounds like most people think that Hoskins did nothing wrong. But obviously, McNeil decided he wanted to motherfuck him from the get-go, so tempers flared a little bit. I will say that in the moment, if I'm McNeil, I can understand the frustration of getting rolled up on, but um, dude, you got to get out of the way. And the fact that it was reviewed and Hoskins was well within the rules and I don't know, you can't just lose the ball and just stand there with your foot right on the middle of the base. So I definitely understand where he's coming from, but to just keep yelling and being mad, I don't know, man. You got to look alive.
Yeah, I listened to baseball today, and I think it probably also was on talking
Yeah.
baseball. And Plouffe was pretty on the side of Reese in the sense of it's a baseball play, and Plouffe played second base himself, and he's like, you're standing over the bag in a normal scenario, and you're not losing the ball in the exchange there. You're trying to make a throw, and you're not just standing on the bag. So yeah, it's a legal slide by the book. I guess similarly, baseball's dead. Dallas Braden, he was more, I think, how I feel, where it was a legal slide, but like I wouldn't want
Oh
to be
yeah.
Jeff McNeil either, right? So,
Right. Right.
but I guess there's some history too where this is just kind of how Reese breaks up double plays and it's within the rules. So, but again, Braden said kind of a similar thing and said, especially with kind of the new age of baseball and the newer rules, guys aren't as used to having to get out of the way. He referenced like Ozzie Smith hopping over second base to make a throw. But there's so many shortstops, in your head, there's awesome pictures of guys jumping like 2 feet over someone, sliding into him, making a throw to turn a double play. And obviously, McNeil was not doing that because he was just playing it on the bag. So I agree that he was a little too riled up.
Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I'm sure that I'm biased, but um I don't want to sound like a total homer. Like it's not ideal to get your leg rolled up on like that, but unfortunately in his defense, I'll say that, but unfortunately it's well within the rules. So
Yeah, yeah, no,
um
and it was. I mean, it was awesome kind of electricity to start the year, though. I know
oh yeah.
um, your manager. You're
Yeah.
proud of him.
Hell
But
yeah.
yeah, it was just awesome to see the kind of. I mean, Reese is gonna have to be one of the leaders, even if he's only here a year. He's one of
Hmm.
the more experienced guys on this team. So the fact that he was already stepping up, and honestly, we'll get to it, but throughout the weekend, he handled everything about as perfectly as he can. So, um, yeah, that was awesome. And you got the bullpen got a nice little jog in,
Yep.
hustling out. So, yeah, I think it was a pretty electric start.
Yeah, I think that clip from Murphy that I'm going to talk about, I think that was game two. So we'll go into game two quick. So the Brewers won 7-6. Hoskins got his revenge with 3 hits, including a home run. Deal Hall looked okay in his start. So something to build on, short start, and then Uribe got another save. He did give up a home run to Polar Bear Pete, but yeah. So Hoskins gets thrown at Ben in his fourth at bat. It misses him high and behind him. Um, I'm not surprised it happened. We can all probably agree that shouldn't throw high at somebody, but tempers are flaring, not surprised, whatever. We don't even need to debate that side of it. What I want to, I mean, you can if you want, but what I want to highlight is I'm not going to pretend that I didn't like Craig Counsell when he was here and I was over Craig Counsell, but I'll tell you what, seeing Pat Murphy come out and get fired up for the guys, and there's just something about that mixed with some of the interviews we saw in spring training or the locker room speech where he said, you know, I want to win until there's no more winning to do until they stop us. And seeing him fired up, I was a little worried at first that he might be you heard the jokes in past years and like the dad humor, and like he seemed like a great guy, but I didn't know if he'd be a little too silly, like for lack of a better term, I guess. And I think it's the perfect mix from what we've seen on the outside. I don't know what goes on in the clubhouse on a day-to-day basis, but seeing him get fired up for Reese, a new guy, seeing him get fired up for the team, I love to see that, and that seems like a dude you want to play for. So I like this little bit of a chip on our shoulder that we have that maybe we didn't see as much in the last couple of years. So that's one positive.
Yeah, I will. I feel like Council would get fired up. He just didn't have any like fun personality that we see. So yeah, it's a good mix of that. And I think one other thing too, with a guy who's been around the game as long as he has, is before that at bat, you kind of saw Murph talking to Reese and kind of in his ear, covering his mouth. So I can't imagine he was just trying to give him another scouting report when Reese already was killing it on the day, 3 for 4. So it's almost like he was maybe warning him that this is a scenario where they might try this. Where I think a lot of people in baseball that obviously still kind of support and live by those unwritten rules, they say or kind of agreed with what I was thinking that, I mean, if you're going to do this, you do it right away, kind of regardless. Otherwise, the moment passed. If it's way later in the game and Reese is already embarrassing you, it's just makes it look even worse, I feel like. And then obviously to throw at his head also makes worse. And
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like a situation by situation thing too. In this situation, I just think that like I don't know with the Mets, like to have to stand up for McNeil, it's like, dude, you were standing over him, screaming at him. Just if you're really that mad, don't get your teammate suspended for throwing at somebody. Don't like
yeah,
just punch him. If you really want to fight him that bad, take your couple of games suspension and punch him. So
yeah,
I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. I don't totally fault either of them, but I definitely think we were on the right side of things. So, but yeah, fireworks. It was great. Abner Uribe back-to-back saves. Obviously, he gave it the run, but good to see him getting right after it. Giving a little finger gun to the Mets bullpen, telling him to pipe down. So
yeah, that was sick.
you better hope that doesn't come back to bite us. But we've heard since he was in the minors that he's a showman. So obviously, when you're on his side, you love it. But I'm sure if I
Yeah.
was a Mets fan, I'd be pissed. But
Yeah. I mean, if he keeps getting results, he can do it, but
yep,
we'll
yep,
see. Yeah.
absolutely.
I know well, I was kind of not confused, but on the broadcast, it said that one of the pitches was like 102 or 103, but then on Savant, it had it at like 99.9. But
Oh,
either
really?
way, The ball that the home run was off of on Savant was 99.9. So we'll call it 100. And it's the exit velo was 113.8. That when it comes in that fast and peek out on it, that thing was a
Mhm.
liner. But right after that, shut him back down, and like we saw, still had the swag. Sorry, I was just gonna quick stay in that game. Like a lot of our big names all hit really well.
Mhm.
Contreras was 3 for 5 with a run. Yeli was 2 for 5 with a run and an RBI, and Adames was 2 for 5 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs in addition to Reese. So like the three kind of pillars there all showed out. And
Yeah.
I believe that's also the game where Oliver Dunn had his first hit, and he also flashed the leather at third. That really caught me by surprise because
Mhm.
his calling card coming up was the bat, and he had two really nice plays. So
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, also want to shout out game one, Jake Bauers, first pitch. I think it was a double, right? Down the
yeah,
right field line.
double.
So that was cool to see. He didn't have a great series, but that was cool. And then yeah, game three, Brewers finished out the sweep 4-1. Contreras had a pair of doubles. Colin Ray looked pretty solid. And then Bryan Hudson made his Brewers debut and had 4 Ks and 3 innings of pretty much perfect baseball. So that was cool to see a really big lefty from a funky arm slot. So hopefully they can use him wisely this year. He's likely be a long guy. It looks like, well, funny long guy,
Yeah,
but he'll likely be the lefty long guy, maybe like the complement to Bryce Wilson. So
yep,
um,
yeah,
good to see.
yeah. I was gonna say, we also saw in that game Oliver Dunn's first RBI, just to continue the Oliver Dunn
Yep.
train. But yeah, I kind of did some deeper reading on Hudson, and his extension is he threw, I think it was like 8 fastballs from over 8 feet of extension. So he's literally throwing it, what, the mound's 60'6". He's throwing it basically 52.5 feet on some of those fastballs. So you think about how much closer to the batter that is. I saw it was approximately like a 3 or so mile an hour increase on what it looks like to the
Yeah.
hitter. Plus, he comes out wide and kind of low. So the angle that the ball comes in at is insane. I would not want to be a lefty facing him for
Yeah.
sure. And it even looks weird for righties. But yeah, he had a lot of success with the fastball cutter sweeper mix. So awesome to see. And like I also noted, his velocity didn't really change across the 3 innings, which is huge for a guy that we're looking at to cover bulk innings. So if he can go 3, maybe 4, depending on how efficient he is, um, yeah, that's awesome. But 4 Ks and 2 hits is perfect.
Yeah, I was just gonna say then for the series, some of the standouts I put on Twitter today, but Yeli was 5 for 11 with the homer, 2 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. So really, really great to see him on base 7 times, five
Mm,
hits, starting out the season hot. So we're definitely, if we want to make the playoffs, we need to see good Yelich this year. And then 20-year-old Jackson Churio, we all said, oh, well, if he starts out really slow, we shouldn't be worried. Well, good news through the first series, we didn't need to worry just yet because he was 5 for 12 with a double, 2 RBI, and a stolen base.
yeah, definitely didn't start off slow. I think yesterday on that
Mhm.
infield single, it was like one of the
30.6,
five,
I think.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
the 5 fastest home to first of the
hmm
year at least. So he's definitely got the wheels, and I think you were going to touch on when he used the wheels in the field too.
Yeah, yeah, a couple awkward looking plays, but I think a lot of guys were having trouble in that right center, right
Yeah,
field area. So he made some plays, dealing with the wind and the sun. So, and then we talked about Hoskins, but he had 4 RBI. He's on base 5 times. Contreras was 5 for 13 with a couple extra base hits, couple RBI. Adames 4 for 12 with a double and 2 RBI, and then also Terang I think had 5 hits. So
yeah.
that's really good to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say for Trang specifically in yesterday's game, I have like a couple extra insights I'm gonna go back on
Yeah.
just to hit on across the series, but this will parlay straight into this one. So Trang yesterday in his 4 at bats actually saw 25 pitches, which I think is huge for his kind of profile where he's obviously not gonna slug for much anyways. I'm not gonna rule that out, but if he can get on base, see pitches, whether that's walking or just getting good enough contact to get on, but eating pitches like that in the bottom of the lineup, I think is going to be huge as the year goes on. So I saw that as a pretty valuable little added piece in yesterday's game. Um, And then just to backtrack a little bit, to on Friday, the home run that Marte hit, apparently, according to Statcast, is only a home run in 2 parks.
Mm.
And we obviously were playing in one of them, but he did rip it. I think it would have been extra bases no matter what. But I thought that was kind of interesting because it obviously was the only blemish on Freddy's stat line, but obviously it was hit hard enough that he earned it. But I found that interesting. And then I was just going to talk a little bit about Hall's outing because you touched on it. It's a great starting point. But at least watching, I don't think he necessarily was locating where he wanted to, but at least they weren't hurting him. So he lucked out. And I mean, you pitched your whole life, and I also did growing up. And you know that you're not on it every day, but sometimes if you just put it in the zone, the defense will help you out. And that's exactly what we can do, and that's what we're built to do. So that was the key, I think, is even though his stuff wasn't maybe locating where he wanted it, he avoided the detrimental hits and at least was able to utilize the um, fielders behind him. So I think that was a key because, like you said, it's not. He definitely wasn't Corbin that he's replacing, right? Which obviously that's impossible. Those shoes are, I mean, they're too. Corbin at DL Hall's age wouldn't fill Corbin shoes. So
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to get through the outing, I think with the minimal damage and the 4 innings is really all we could ask for. So those are kind of the main things that I just wanted to dive into.
Yeah, if we looking at this series, and obviously very small sample size, but the offense hitting this well. If and we talked about we have a good defense, and the rotation questions that I've had I think are coming after these top three, and obviously we'll get Miley back. And don't get me wrong, Ray and DL Hall and Wade Miley probably aren't aces on a postseason roster, but those four I feel pretty optimistic about with the way the team is constructed. But now the big question marks for me on this team are what we're about to see in Jacob Junis and Joe Ross. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But overall, it was there were a couple small questions I think answered for me this past weekend. So obviously we got a long way to go, but it was refreshing to just see the offense. And I think what do we hear from our stats buddy? How many 3-game stretches did the Brewers have 33 hits last season? 4 times. So there was only 4 times that what we did in this last series happened last year. So pretty
Yeah.
pretty good stuff from the offense. I don't think that's a fluke in the first series. So yeah, and I don't know if you had anything else from the major league team, but we were gonna shift down to Nashville and then to Biloxi, but
I just had a couple things from listening to like the kind of radio summaries and stuff after, and I know one Murph mentioned, I guess, that he actually approached Yeli before opening day and kind of ran through the Churio leading off scenario to Yeli, I guess, just to get his opinion, not necessarily obviously his final approval, but Yeli's response was, I guess, that he's ready for the moment, showed well enough in spring that he's ready, and kind of gave his stamp of approval apparently, which is just cool, I think, to see.
and was
Um,
patient in his
yeah,
first AB. He took a walk,
yeah,
just
yeah.
being patient. That's to start the season, to start your career as a fresh 20-year-old. That was impressive. That was
Yep.
one of the yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other, I guess, question that I don't necessarily have answered yet, that I was going to touch on is, and I think we saw it yesterday, but I know we saw it in the first game, is having our DH be our backup catcher and then
Yeah.
pinch hitting for our DH, which means we have no backup catcher.
Yep.
Um, that's, I guess, was the argument for the three, right? And I guess we saw that it's not going to hold them back from making decisions that they think will help them at the end of a game. But it is a little, I guess, not worrying, but even yesterday, Contreras, after the one double, he kind of was grabbing at his back
Yep.
and so on. And you start thinking at that point, I think Sanchez was still in the game, but it definitely makes you think that there could be a chance, or at the very least, we're going to probably make Contreras push through something at some point if that pops up, because um, yeah, obviously
Well,
once you use him, he's done.
Murphy told, I think Todd Rosiak it was, to put out the poll, and when they said who's the emergency catcher, he said, I don't know, ask the fans.
Yeah.
So I love that stuff.
Did you see who won
From,
the vote?
I think it was Frelick, right?
Yeah, it was Sal.
Yeah. Well, so that's a good transition to Eric Haase cleared waivers today and was outrighted in Nashville. And then that's also a good transition to we have good news, bad news from Nashville. The what we were going to mention already was we saw Patrick Dorrian had the first run of the year. I was watching the Sound. So Patrick Dorrian had a solo home run, hit a bomb. He's a underrated guy, I think, to mention. That doesn't get a lot of love, but he plays a lot of positions. And he's a power hitter, so we could see him on the team, I think, maybe towards the end of this year. But on the catcher standpoint of things, and our bad news, unfortunately, was Jeferson Quero dove back in on I think it was a back pick or a pickoff, and sublexed his shoulder, which we know from Garrett Mitchell in the past that it's not a dislocation, and I don't know the proper terminology, but it's like it's probably good news compared to what the worst case scenario is, but it's also just not good news because of course. So to your point about using one catcher as probably the DH often, and then Haas just cleared waivers. So I don't know what their plan is there. Like you can't really just call up Haas because then you'd have to clear him through waivers again. So that's
No,
obviously
I
their
don't think they
plan
would.
now.
I
Right.
think that was already in their head. It's just it kind of
Right.
interests me. You'd think if
It is, yeah.
Gary's your DH that day, he's your DH that day. Like
Hmm.
pinch hit people elsewhere.
Yeah, I
In
agree.
my opinion, it might not come back to bite us, but in the event that you're in a close game, which is probably why you're using a pinch hitter a lot of the
Mhm.
time, and you for some reason we lose Contreras, you're trying to win a game with. I mean, I don't want to diss Sal. Maybe he's got a
Yeah.
secret Gold Glove back there, but um, yeah, I guess that was kind of the main concern. Is you just I don't know. It's an interesting scenario, but at least we still have Haas, and at the very least, the Sounds can use them
Yeah.
if Caro's out.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's really all I had. It's a super light episode. I don't know if you have anything else before give a little word to our sponsor and then head into the Javik Blake interview, drop down one more level of the minor leagues. But that's all I had.
Yeah, I guess the one thing is on our opening day against the Mets. I was watching the Mets broadcast and their veteran of the game. I didn't get to give my my personal well wishes to. Just they went through all of his accolades. I think it was in World War II, and it's just crazy. And I love seeing the um, the kind of elderly fans there that just they love their team and they go out for every game. So it, it was awesome to see Seymour Weiner get
Hmm.
his round of applause. So
And here he is, our veteran of the game, Seymour Weiner.
Yep.
just an extra shout there.
Yes,
But
I
yeah,
I did want to shout out Mr. Weiner on his accomplishments and thank him for his service.
yeah.
But glad
You
to put that in there. So, just wanted to give another shout out to Spiders, spidersbattinggloves.com. If you want 15% off all your baseball gear or apparel, use the code the scoop 15 at checkout. So, thanks for that. Thanks to Javik Blake from the Biloxi Shuckers for his time. He was awesome. And here's an interview with our friend Javik. All right, we're here with Javik Blake from the Biloxi Shuckers, Brewers AA affiliate. So, Javik, we're going to go ahead and let you give yourself a little introduction, but thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is exciting times. We're almost getting ready in Biloxi to get the season started. By the time this is out, the Brewers will pretty much almost be started and ready to go. So it's exciting. I'm entering my second year here in Biloxi. My second season in affiliated baseball. I've had a couple of stops beforehand. I finished up my college career at Elon University last January. Moved right to Biloxi, and I'm entering my second season here in Biloxi, but I do have a couple of connections to Wisconsin. I spent a summer in the Northwoods League with the good old Fond du Lac Dock Spiders. Spent a year in Indy ball with the High Point Rockers in the Atlantic League in North Carolina in 2021. And then in 2018 and 2019, I was with the Wareham Gatemen of the Cape Cod Baseball League. So I'm well-versed in not only wild team names, because you got the Dock Spiders, the Rockers, and the Shuckers, but also a lot of fun places. And that's the joy of this job. You end up living in all these different places, meeting all these people. And it's been quite a blast. So excited to join and excited to talk a lot about, I guess it's just now the Milwaukee Brewers. It's not former Shuckers players. It's just guys who are going to be wearing Brewers uniforms either now or very, very soon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. But yeah, so I think we got a couple random little things at the end, but just to start off, we just wanted to hear about, obviously, I'm sure anytime anyone wants to talk to you and we're from the Brewers, they want to hear about Jeferson Quero, but then as well, the other big hitters like Tyler Black, Wes Clark. So first, I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about some of the offensive guys. So I think those are all guys that we might see this year between Clark, Jeferson Quero, Jeferson Quero, Tyler Black. Did you have a personal favorite, or is there anything in particular that we may have not seen from the media here in Milwaukee? And what can you say about those guys? Obviously, we hear a lot about Jackson, but
Yeah, well, I'd say too, like your voice is even recognizable from some of the like highlights, but you're watching them day to day, right? So maybe some of the stuff on a day to day that we don't see when we just get to see the freak plays that some of those guys can do.
Yeah, well, that's the big thing. You said it, freak plays. They're all a bunch of studs. Like Tyler Black's just an athlete. Like the fact that he has learned 4 different positions in pro baseball since being drafted is ridiculous. Like he had never played a game at third base prior to the start of last year. At the end of the year, pretty good third baseman. Decided to pick up first base in the middle of the year when the Brewers, they didn't know they were trading for Santana at the deadline. Used Wes Clark's first base glove that Wes used all the way back to his days at South Carolina, to the point where the glove still had the South Carolina baseball logo on it while Tyler's learning first base, while Mike Guerrero, our manager at the time, is busy like throwing him ground balls and trying to break in his actual first base with Tyler to get him ready to go. But they're all just, not only they're great players, they're great humans as well. That's one of the big things with Jackson is he's just so much fun to watch. He's always going to smile at the ballpark. And he just brings a lot of flair and a lot of fun. And I think that's one of the big things I'm excited to see with Jackson now at the big league level, is just how exciting he's going to be on a daily basis. I mean, he still can't legally drink in the United States of America. He just turned 20 years old. So he's one of those guys that just plays with so much joy and so much fun. And Jeferson Quero is the same way. Quero was the best defensive catcher I saw last year by a mile. And he very well, I mean, he won the Gold Glove for it last year. It backs me up when I say he's the best defensive catcher in minor league baseball. But it is scary good how impressive Quero is behind the plate. Not only working with the pitching staff, he did that all last year at 20 years old. But also just limiting base runners. If you look at the stolen base totals against in the Southern League, there is a sizable gap between the top 2 who allowed the least amount, which was us and the Biloxi Shuckers. And I believe it was the Chattanooga Lookouts, the Reds affiliate, and everybody else. He did a terrific job at just limiting not only guys on with working with the pitching staff, but also limiting guys advancing bases and stealing bases just with how good his arm is. And then Wes Clark. I mean, Wes is so much fun. He hits balls harder than you'll probably ever see. And the sound off the bat's just different. And he's a great guy. Super, super awesome human being, really great person. And he's just so much fun to watch. His BP sessions are just bam, 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 bam. Which just makes it so much fun. And I'm really excited to see what happens with Wes this year. Because you look at the numbers from last year, the stuff after the All-Star break was ridiculous. The WRC plus was, I think, above 150 in Double-A to end the year. But it'll be interesting to see whether the Brewers are wanting him to be at first base, wanting to be a catcher. I was at spring training. He was doing a lot of the catcher side of things. But it depends kind of where they want him defensively, because obviously either way, the bat plays well. You want the strikeout rate a little bit less. But he's another guy that really it's impressive to watch him. And speaking of Tyler Black, if he makes it to the big leagues as a first baseman, he will instantly be the fastest first baseman possibly in baseball history, because he stole 50+ bags last year, and he's a corner infielder, which you just never see.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome to hear all those things. I think the number one thing that stood out to me from all that you just said is that Tyler Black, I think a big question mark in Milwaukee from a lot of fans is, okay, we know he plays all over the infield, but can he play well all over the infield? So it's good to hear you say that how fast he's picking up third base, because we probably see him as a first third baseman in the major league. So that's good to hear. But
well, and that's a big thing too on Black is like the positional versatility. Like if you can play 6 different positions, you don't got to play them great. You don't got to be a Gold Glover, but if you can be serviceable at 2 or 3, that's a great way to find yourself in the lineup every day, which is big because with Black's bat and Black's on base ability, especially if they ever bring the ABS challenge system to the big leagues, that's going to be a guy you want in your lineup every day. And his ability to play all over the place really helps in making Pat Murphy's job easy of, hey, we're just going to put Tyler whatever and he'll be fine.
Yeah, love that.
I think one thing too, news that kind of popped up recently, and I was just thinking about it because we were talking about Churio, is the news kind of came out that he had an elbow injury when he was younger and there's daily maintenance involved. Is that anything you noticed kind of covering in the day-to-day, or did he?
Well, so I didn't notice that at all.
Okay, that's good. That's
so
good.
You know, I was kind of, when I was reading it, I was like, wait a minute. What? I was like, I remember walking in that clubhouse on a daily basis, and I don't think I ever saw Jackson in the trainer's room. Now, the daily maintenance could have been before I showed up.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was in there every day last year, and I didn't see much.
Yeah.
There was no braces on him. There was no tape on him. You know, they didn't wrap it up or anything. I didn't see him post-game with any ice all over himself like a pitcher. The only thing I did saw was his trademark yellow arm sleeves. The bright yellow arm sleeve that he rocks. But outside of that, you know, I was kind of surprised by that, but he led the Southern League last year in games played. He led in plate appearances, and played pretty much every day of the week. So I think that's important and shows that even if it is something that was a problem maybe a couple of years ago, definitely not something that flared up in any way, shape, or form last year.
That's awesome. Good to hear. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of came just out of nowhere, like to us as well, obviously. So it was just weird. But obviously we weren't super concerned, but that's great to hear from you. But then moving to the other side of the ball, obviously we hear about Jacob Mizorowski a lot, because why wouldn't you? But Carlos F. Rodriguez is a guy who gets a lot of hype, and I feel like of the guy, you know, he was a co-pitcher of the year in the system last year. We don't really actually hear or know too much about him compared to some of these other guys. So if you have anything to add about Jacob Mizorowski, feel free, but I would love to hear more about Carlos F. Rodriguez in particular.
Well, I think the big thing is you said it, right? That Mizorowski gets a lot of the attention in the system, and it's very, very well deserved. I mean, this stuff's disgusting. I was going through stuff yesterday. Me and a buddy were texting back and forth because he picked up Miz in his fantasy league, and I was like, "This is a good thing." And I was going through his highlights and trying to find his best pitches, and it's disgusting. Like his final start of last year against the Mississippi Rays, where he struck out 12 in 6 innings, it is just disgusting. Like when he's on, he's just filthy. You can't hit him. But Carlos Rodriguez is another one of those guys that he's not going to overpower you. Like he's not throwing 99. He's not throwing 98. But he's able to get guys out, and he gets guys out by mixing locations, mixing speeds. He throws just about everything but the kitchen sink, maybe even including the kitchen sink. He's got some really nice offerings. The way he's able to break up throwing his fastball with his really slow curve that's about 75, 76, 77, pairing it with his other off-speed pitches, it works really well. And he's one of those guys that's really smart about pitching too, which is important as a pitcher, especially at the upper levels. But he's a guy who really was, I don't want to say it was surprising last year, but he was just so good the whole year. He didn't allow runs. He didn't really allow base runners. It wasn't like he was going to strike out 10 every night, but it was a guy that was going to induce weak contact, figure out how to miss barrels, figure out how to miss bats. And I'm really hoping he continues that at the upper levels and hopefully to the big leagues, because what we saw last year was just ridiculous, and it was terrific to see.
Yeah, I think there was rumors at the end of last year, before he had a minor injury and got shut down, that we might see him in a relief role at the end, even in Milwaukee at the end of the year. Obviously, that didn't pan out. So I feel like it might be sooner rather than later that we see Mizorowski again. But yeah, cool to hear about Carlos F. Rodriguez. Like I said, I feel like we don't hear as much as we should about him.
Yeah, I know when I read up on him a little bit, kind of like you mentioned, his pitch mix, he has so many things he can throw, and it seems like he's obviously willing to try anything too, which I think is a big piece of trying to be a starter, especially about where he sits with his velocity, is being able to pick up some of the other pitches and locate. And I know we talked about it a little bit on one of our discussions, but the fact that he pitched against Puerto Rico in the World Baseball Classic is just awesome. And he had, well, it technically was an earned run, but if you watched the game, it was a bad throw on a double play. So he gave up one, in my mind, unearned run over 4 innings against big league talent. So that speaks for itself, I think. So it's pretty cool. And obviously his stat line shows it for how he did with you guys last year. I've kind of been doing a analysis of some of the prospects within the org, which obviously leads you to, Biloxi a lot of the time, or will soon for some of these guys. But one guy that I looked at recently was Ryan Middendorf. And it looked like he had a pretty sizable bulk of innings last year in Biloxi. I guess I was just wondering if you had anything to add on him specifically, just because he's a name that I've kind of been looking at and have an eye on from a distance. I know he's kind of brought some attention with his performance in spring training. So it's just kind of a hot name at the time.
Yeah, Mitty's terrific. He's got such a cool story. Started out in indie ball. His dad convinced him to go to a tryout to pitch, go to a Frontier League tryout. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll go. And now it leads here. I saw him at the breakout series game, and I was like, dude, this is a long way from the front. But this spring, apparently, I saw him in the breakout series game. I didn't see him in any of the side sessions, but apparently he broke his PR back-to-back days. I believe he broke 97 and then broke 98 the next day, which is disgusting. So he's another one of those really, really good guys, one of those tall, lanky guys, but he really is able to get the ball well when he has that experience in indie ball, which I think helps on kind of the mental side of things. Because typically your clubhouses in indie ball, and it might not, it's not the same in the Frontier League as it is in the American Association or the Atlantic League, but they are typically older and more experienced than your standard like A-ball team. So that does help a bit on the mental side of things as well, just being around kind of the older clubhouse and stuff. But no, he's really terrific, and I'm hoping nothing for the best for him this year. Hopefully it's something he's starting out in AAA and is up at the big leagues. But if he's touching 98, I mean, just put on 2 more. Touch triple. More fun.
Yeah, he had a cool story. Like I thought I remembered. So yeah, definitely an older prospect than normally with that extra college time in the Frontier, and then finally getting into the Brewers org. But yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah, the Brewers really like those guys like that. Like Darryl Thompson was a guy last year. He ended the year with Nashville. I wouldn't be shocked if he starts up with the Sounds again. But he was one of those guys. I mean, he was pitching in the Pecos League 6 years ago. Pitched in the Frontier League, finally made his affiliated ball debut last year. And just seeing him pitch and seeing him in AAA and seeing him in spring training, it's like, how in the world did you go so many years without anybody signing you? And kudos to the Brewers. I mean, their scouting department is terrific. And finding those gems in indie ball, and Middendorf's one, and Thompson's another, and there's plenty more to come.
Yeah, I think Jake Cousins, who at least for Scoop, I know we were pretty excited about him for a few years as a Brewers fan. He also came out of Schaumburg in the Frontier League, and I think there's a couple other guys too. So yeah, props to the scouting department. So
I was just gonna say, is there anyone else that and I mean, you're not in Milwaukee, but is there anyone else that's should be more on our radar that aren't one of those big names, top prospects? Do you have a personal favorite, or did we pretty much hit all the guys that you think? Is there someone else you think we might see in Milwaukee that you saw last year that we haven't mentioned yet? Or
I love Brock Wilken. Brock Wilken's terrific. He's a lot of fun, but obviously he's a guy who gets a lot of the hype.
Yeah.
Guys who do not get a ton of the hype that could potentially make it in Milwaukee. Tobias Myers is one. Now, I'm not sure of the Brewers wanting him to be a starter or a reliever, but his fastball averaged at times 96 miles an hour last year. He led the league in strikeouts, broke our franchise record in Biloxi for strikeouts. The big thing for him was getting the fastball to play just a little bit more. It got a little bit flat sometimes, and that's where the bad innings occurred. But he was a guy who pitched well for us last year, especially down the stretch. Xavier Warren's another guy who exploded last year in the second half, especially down the stretch. I think he had over 300 after the start of August 1st, which usually you see guys drop a bit with it being August and September and late in the season. But he was terrific. And then Isaac Collins is another guy who's just super under the radar, but can play 6 different positions. And I think that's vitally important, especially getting to the big league level. Collins last year led us in OBP, led AA in OBP, had more walks than strikeouts over a full season, which is insane. But he's another guy that positional versatility really, really plays. He can steal a lot of bags. He stole, I believe, 20 plus last year. He's got some pop in the bat, and his on-base ability, will play it at pretty much any level. He attacked a lot more in the zone second half of the year, and I think that really elevated him and his game to another level. So we'll see where he starts this year. Wouldn't be shocked if it's Nashville, but we'll kind of see what happens on that end.
Awesome. Yeah, Cole, go ahead. I know that's all I had on the player side, but I know we thought about possibly taking a trip down to Biloxi at some point to check it all out. But go ahead, Cole.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I haven't been, obviously, but it's definitely a destination, especially when it snowed 6 inches last week in Milwaukee. That looks a little more attractive, especially earlier in the year. But just doing a little research, obviously, it's down on the Gulf of Mexico, and it looks like there's kind of a casino like right behind the stadium or something. So
There is. So,
yeah, just talk a little bit about Biloxi.
Yeah, so Biloxi, it's a tourist destination. So we have 9 casinos, I believe, on the coast. Behind the ballpark is the Beau Rivage, which is the biggest casino kind of on the coast. It's like that and the Hard Rock are right next to each other. But it's also the tallest building in the state of Mississippi, which is wild. It's like 350 something feet tall. It might not even be 350. But that's my fun fact, is that every night you look at the tallest building in the state of Mississippi.
There you go.
But no, it's terrific down here. The food's terrific. The people are terrific. And it's such a fun ballpark to see a game. One of the big things, we have a new ownership group. John Tracy purchased us at the not February of 2024, February of 2023. And this is his first off season, and we have done, a ton of changes to the ballpark. We installed, first off, on the player side of things, not something that fans will see every game, but we redid our entire infield. So new grass, new dirt, new mound. The grass and the dirt are the same exact grass and dirt mix they have in Milwaukee. Same with the mound and the clay they use there. So the infield is basically the same. Obviously, there's no roof, so it's a little different. But it will be the exact same infield as what they have in American Family Field up in Milwaukee. And we've added a tiki bar. We've added a boardwalk. We've got a splash pad. We got a wiffle ball field out in front of the ballpark. So we've been able to add a bunch of really, really cool things that really takes the ballpark to the next level. So on top of, the fun ballpark, you got the terrific food, you got the great people. It's always warm. So there's no negatives on that end.
Dang. So yeah, I should have had Javik give the sales pitch, not me. Maybe we'd have a trip scheduled.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a good chance we see you down there in 2024. Just so you know.
Hey, all good. Hey, there's a nice little airport right here in Gulfport. It's nice and small. It's 20 minutes away from the ballpark. Drive on over, and we got all the beers and food and tiki bars you could want.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Do you know off the top of your head, and I obviously could look, but how long has Biloxi been an affiliate of the Brewers now? Because it's going on how many years now?
This will be our 9th season as a Brewers affiliate, but it's been 9 years since we moved to the coast. So originally, we trace our roots all the way back to the Nashville Sounds when they were a AA affiliate.
Okay.
So the Sounds were originally a AA team in the Southern League, the Evansville Triplets, who were in the American Association, not the Independent League back when it was one of the 3 AAA leagues. They moved to Nashville and became the Sounds. And the Sounds carried on like the Sounds AA history, but the Sounds AA team did get transferred to Huntsville, Alabama, and the Huntsville Stars, where they were through the 2014 season, and then in 2015 we came, and that's why over my left, I don't know my left and right, which is kind of, but over my left shoulder, it's a whole bunch of collage of former Huntsville Stars that we have up here in the booth. But yeah, so we trace our lineage back quite some ways, but we've been on the coast since 2015, and we've been a Brewers affiliate the whole time.
That's right. Yeah, because growing up, it was Brevard County was single A, high A, and then Huntsville was double A. So yeah, I do remember Huntsville, but interesting. All that minor league history is interesting, but. Yeah, cool. That's all I had from the actual Biloxi Shuckers, but I see you got a couple questions that you wanted to ask about some other things as background.
Yeah, more just about, clicking through a LinkedIn page and you see where you've been and stuff. And I saw obviously at Elon, it looks like you just kind of missed some of the recent MLB talent out of there with Ty Adcock and George Kirby. Right? Were they just before your time there?
It's really unfortunate. I saw George Kirby carve up Kansas State and no, not Butler. What was it? Oh, this is bad. I'm blanking right now, and we got a guy in
It's
the work.
okay.
Brian, that's what it is. Brian, little school in
Yep.
Rhode Island.
Oh, yep.
Not far from where I grew up in Massachusetts. But I saw him carve up Brian and Kansas State on a couple of visits, but unfortunately, I was not able to attend school at the same time as them, which is also, I just missed Cam Devaney in AA when Devaney's a proud Elon grad as well. And
Okay, nice.
Traded over to the Royals. So I've just missed a couple of different Elon guys in the minor leagues, but from what I've heard back in the day, just seeing Kirby live, like on a visit to campus, and like just happen to line it up with a baseball game. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Totally didn't do that on but it was a lot of fun to see them on campus, and Kyle Brnovich is another guy. But those were a couple guys who it's fun seeing big things. We're a tiny little school. It's like 6,000, 8,000 kids. So to see that happen, it's like, oh, this is Elon on the big level. This doesn't happen too often, which is fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know Elon is in North Carolina, right?
It is.
Yeah, so and it ties into when you were with the Rockers, but my uncle actually lives in High Point and used to coach baseball at High Point University.
Really?
Yeah, so I visit him, try to go at least once a year. And last time we were down there, we went to the Rockers' new stadium in High Point. Well, they're a relatively newer stadium anyways. And there's like a little food hall in it and stuff. So we got coffee, and it was kind of just a normal morning. There's no game or anything going on, but it still was cool. And kind of a cool little part of town they have going in High Point. So I guess I was just wondering, you've kind of experienced, you were college ball, you were with NWSL, you were with Cape Cod, and then you're obviously AA now, and also in independent with the Rockers. So I guess I don't know if it's fair to say how does it compare, but it's almost like you've taken your own journey that all these players are taking, going from college to summer leagues to whatever path through the minors. So it's kind of just it's cool. I guess you've seen the day-to-day of all these guys at all the levels they go through. So I think that's just really cool. But yeah, I guess one other piece I was going to say is with the Cape Cod League, when you were there, I kind of looked at a couple of the rosters, and I won't steal your thunder, but it looks like when you were, is it Wareham?
It is the Wareham team, and the only Cape Cod Baseball League team that's not actually on Cape Cod. Right before the bridge.
There were some crazy looking rosters and different guys on those teams. So I won't steal your thunder. I'm sure you got them lined up in your head, but a bunch of guys that are pretty serious MLB pieces, as well as a guy that just today we got some news that he's out indefinitely for the Reds. In Matt McLean, I think I saw he was on the team.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's between indie ball and AA as well. So between indie ball and the Rockers, college summer ball with the Gatemen, college summer ball in the Northwoods League, and now here in AA with the Shuckers, the list of guys that I've seen is ridiculous. Like when I was in High Point, so the food hall wasn't there yet in 2021 when I was there. But I did see Logan Morrison hit a ball off the apartments while they were being built behind the scoreboard in right field when he was with us. Keon Barnum, who is legendary, acclaimed indie ball, put one into the construction of the food hall with the Lexington Legends back when I was in High Point. I saw a lot of just massive home runs against us or for us. The league OPS that year was 827, 28, 29. So to give you an idea of everyone just hit the ball very far. With the Cape League was a lot of fun. I was in high school. It was after my junior year and after my senior year of high school. I kind of did everything with the Gatemen. I didn't call games every night, but I did everything from the pregame show to doing all the back end stuff to filling in for a couple innings here and there to hosting scoreboard segments, doing everything. It was a great opportunity to get to learn everything on the back end. Like I was the producer and all that sort of stuff, which helped me a ton in my position now, which, goes to show college summer ball is a great way to learn, especially in the Northwoods League. Like my schedule in AA is very much the same exact schedule that I had in the Northwoods League with the Dodge Spiders, and my responsibilities are basically exactly the same. I'm just in one place for multiple days, which is not the case in the Northwoods League when you're bussing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all across all of Wisconsin. But in the Cape Cod League, I saw Spencer Torkelson at a 450-foot homer. I saw Alec Manoah. I saw Oliver Dunn. I saw Isaac Collins. There were so many. There were so many guys that you just look back and you're like, wait a minute. Austin Shenton, who was in this league last year and hit like 12 home runs against us with Montgomery against the Shuckers. I think I missed Brock Wilken by you, but there's just so many guys that you're like, wait a minute, I know you, I've seen you play, especially Brock Wilken and Shane Smith in the Brewers system. I saw them play against Elon. Brock Wilken once ruined my birthday because he beat Elon 2-1. So it's just so cool being able to see these guys and connect with these guys and be able to be like, wait a minute, I remember you back in the day, which makes this job really, really fun. Because you meet so many great people. You see so many great people, you meet so many people, and everybody knows everybody, which makes it so much fun because it's a very small world that gets smaller every person you meet, which is just terrific and so much fun.
How'd you like your time in the Northwoods League and busting around Wisconsin, as you said?
Oh, it was terrific. I loved it. Fondy's a great place. There's it's like a bar restaurant right beyond the wall because we played at Marion University in Fondy. Great curds. That's all I'll say. Great curds. But it was terrific. It was so much fun. My GM in the Northwoods League was Jim Mizyak, the longtime baseball comms director for the Atlanta Braves and the Baltimore Orioles, doing all their baseball communications. And to be someone who was there for the summer as the solo broadcaster doing all the media relations, to learn from someone who's done it at the big league level for a long time is really, really fun. And it really helped me a ton. So it was terrific. The people there were terrific. The players were awesome. It was a lot of fun. And we were also owned by the Wisconsin Timber Antlers, who are our high A affiliate. So it's a very small world. And the fact that I now work for the Double A affiliate, I worked for the team that was owned by the high A affiliate. It's a very, very small, tiny world. But it was a lot of fun. Northwoods League's a fun league. You do a lot. I slept for a week and a half after the season ended because you play 72 games in 76 days. You have 6 off days, and 3 of those are the All-Star break, and 1 of those is the top prospects game. So it's quite wild, but it was a lot of fun. And I can't speak highly enough of Jim and that entire staff up in Fondy. They're just all-time great humans, and Jim was a blast to work for a year.
Yeah. I know I mentioned to you before the call, I played in the Northwoods for a short time in 2021, and that was by far like the coolest baseball experience I've ever had. But I'm curious to hear about your comparison. I haven't met too many people that have done Northwoods and the Cape Cod, and it's interesting because to me, like the Cape Cod is the best talent. Like the Northwoods has great talent, but there's no comparison to the Cape Cod. But it's interesting to me. You go to Northwoods games and it feels like minor league baseball. I've never been to the Cape Cod League. Is it still true that you don't pay for tickets and it's kind of just small little backfields almost? It's not like stadiums or anything, right? Can you talk to that at all? Or
yeah, it's not complex league. Like they draw well, but we don't I don't think they sell beer as of when I was there. They don't have walk-up musics and stuff. Like it's very much like summer backfield, like just hanging out watching baseball. Well, the Northwoods League is quite literally minor league baseball. Like I remember vividly, played a doubleheader against the Madison Mallards.
Yep, I was gonna say the Mallards.
Yeah.
Yep, the Mallards. So it was a doubleheader. We played the morning game, it was a kids' day game, and then we played a night game. And the night game, I'm not sure if either of you know this, but the Mallards do like the beer batter of the game, where if the beer batter strikes out, beer's half off for the next half inning. They did it for every batter, and the batter struck out 7 of the 9 innings. And I looked down at one point, the beer line's like 7 people deep down the course. But the Northwoods League is very much like how it operates, how your schedule is. At least I can't speak for how all the teams run, but how we ran in Fond du Lac. They are all very much minor league baseball. And I think what it is huge for me is it helped prepare me in such a big way to where last year it was not a big step to step into this role in Biloxi, which I think is massive. And it's a massive testament to how Jim and the Nash Spiders run things. But it was not a big step to step into this role. It really was a terrific opportunity to be there. And it is very much the closest thing you can get to minor league baseball without being in minor league baseball, because your crowds are great. They do all these promotions. The fans care a lot, the media care a lot about it. And you really run things like a minor league baseball media relations department, which is terrific. And sometimes you have 7 innings of a 9-inning game where beer's half priced and you wave goodbye on your way out.
Right. I just sneak out of the bullpen every couple innings. But yeah, we have people ask us in the bullpen, be like, are you guys minor league? And I'm like, well, first of all, this must be your first game. But second, no, it's not. It's pretty cool though, right? Or
I mean, it wouldn't hurt if you all got paid a bit.
right. or the kids who I ruined their new jersey or hat because they wanted me to sign it. That's the guy over there. He's about to get drafted. Go talk to him, not me. But yeah, it was a good time. I only have one more question, but Cole, I don't know if you have anything after, but I'm going to Fenway for the first time to see the Brewers in I think it's Memorial Day weekend. What do I have to see? Is there anything outside of Fenway baseball related or just Boston related in general? You said you're from the area, so what do I got to check out for the first time there?
Oh, so I am from Massachusetts. I'm not from Boston.
Okay.
I'm from about an hour south, right on the Rhode Island border, little tiny farm town called North Massachusetts. And in the most New England thing possible, we had more Dunkin' Donuts than stoplights growing up. We had one stoplight to 3 Dunkins in Massachusetts. That was the crowning achievement. But my best friend's going to hate me for this. He's a digital reporter with Nesson, who's the RSN, and he does this after every Red Sox game. But there's a place called Tasty Burger that is across the street from Fenway. That is the best burger you're going to find in the entirety of Boston. Like, it's delicious. It's quick. It's open till like 2 a.m., I think. But it's delicious. There's a lot of fun, though. There's a lot to see, a lot to do, especially in the summertime. It's a big city, but you can go on the T and pretty much catch anywhere. There's a lot of good food places. The North End's really yummy Italian. I mean, you can find a lot of really, really, really fun places. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I haven't been back to Massachusetts in a while. But yeah, there's a lot of fun things to do, a lot of good food. If you go in the summertime, it'll be warm and it won't be snowing, which is always a big plus that didn't happen much when you live in New England growing up because it's warm for like 3 months a year.
Yeah. That's good to know. I'll have to try to check that out after the game. I'll probably be busy, but yeah, Cole, I didn't know if you had anything else, but
No, not really. Other than I would say my girlfriend very much enjoyed the North End, so I know you're bringing your wife, so check out the North End. She'll love that.
There we go. Yeah, you got to go to Mike's Pastries. Best cannolis you're gonna find in Boston.
Yeah, the lines are crazy.
I've ever had. The line's like 70 people. It's like Maller's beer batter every second line out of there. But it's delicious. You got to get yourself at least a couple. Get yourself some good food. And yeah, I mean, you're going in the summertime. Lobster rolls are never a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time. It should be fun and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I have a question, but obviously we went through kind of all the different stops you've had, and you talked about doing Cape Cod work in high school. So obviously, like, you've had your eyes set on what you're doing and the path you're on for a while. So could be a dumb question, but do you have like a favorite play-by-play guy or a favorite broadcaster? Because obviously in Milwaukee we have at least a Mount Rushmore broadcaster, in my opinion, across sports. So we'll let you close with that. I think who's the GOAT according to Javik?
Well, you guys built this all up that I'm from Massachusetts. Now I'm going to drop the bomb. I grew up a diehard Yankees fan in the middle of Massachusetts during the years starting in 2001, straight when the Yankees stopped winning world championships. 2009, the Red Sox started winning a lot. But growing up, I was really fortunate. 790 AM out of Providence carried the Yankees. So I grew up listening to John Sterling every single night. Like I used to, my parents used to read me a bedtime story. Then I'd turn on the radio, listen to John Sterling and fall asleep. So 790 was always my go-to when I was a kid. And John Sterling was the guy that I grew up pretty much every night for my entire childhood. So he was the man for me growing up.
Awesome.
We're just gonna dub over Brewers and Bob Uecker, and then it's gonna go over perfect.
Well, the sad part is MLB at bat didn't really exist when I was a kid. So growing up now, getting to listen to Uecker and all of that is terrific, and especially in high school and past then. I mean, it's been so much fun listening to the entire Brewers guys. I mean, they're all terrific.
All right. Well, hey, we don't pay for the fancy Zoom. We're on a tight budget, so it's about to expire. So sorry if we get cut off, but we just want to say thank you so much. We'd love to have you back sometime during the season, catch up mid-year in Biloxi, and maybe we'll see you down there this summer. But really appreciate it, Javik. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, y'all. Really appreciate it, and it was a lot of fun. We'd love to be back. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, go Shuckers.
Go Shuckers.